I'm now recording this session, which is Going Green for God, as part of the Joined Up conference. Welcome, everybody. We've all introduced ourselves, coming from different areas and different work spaces where we're working with children and young people. I'm going to share my screen now to show my presentation, and then we'll have some discussion. And I see now we have some young people with us, which is wonderful as well. So, in this workshop, I'll be using the chat and saving it for your ideas and for you to introduce yourself. We'll talk about key issues, and then I want to hear a little bit of the voices of young people in a recent Tear Fund report, which many of you will know about. Then we'll talk about our experiences and discussions and some ideas to start with. We'll talk about being outside, because that's really important, and also ideas, especially I need to pick your brains for a conference we're holding in June in Sheffield. I've got a resource guide at the end for reference, which won't necessarily be part of the session because there's quite a lot of it, but I'm going to be putting it into a PDF and make sure that that's accessible to delegates on the website. I'll sort that out with Mike later. I put a note about COVID. I just wanted to mention that, of course, all the things I'm talking about are within restrictions. For example, we can't meet outside in groups of more than 2 or households, single households. So that means that, for example, talking about outdoor worship, obviously, those restrictions are in place at the time of discussion. As all of us are very aware, that's putting some restrictions on what we do. So, why is this important? We're all very familiar now with the term a climate emergency. It's something that really 10 years ago, 20 years ago, this would have seemed like a strange term, but we hear it increasingly. The Diocese of Sheffield declared a climate emergency at Diocesan Synod last November when it committed to eco-church, eco-diocese and net zero by 2030, which is the Church of England's target. We know greenhouse gas emissions are going up and average temperatures have risen by at least 0.7 degrees centigrade, and nature is impacted by this. So the climate emergency and the nature and ecological emergency are completely interlinked. We have extreme weather events. There's desertification, as in the picture on the left, where there's severe droughts, and we know that there is pollution from fossil fuels, which is fueling the greenhouse gas emissions, and the rise in temperatures and increase in density of warmer water is causing rising sea levels and melting of the ice at the ice caps. So what is the Church doing about this? Well, many faith groups and organisations are involved in beginning to speak up on this. As far as the Church of England is concerned, following the Paris Agreement in 2015, we've got to pursue efforts for a 1.5 degrees centigrade limit in rises. So we're all adopting very ambitious targets. And the Church of England target for net zero carbon by 2030 applies to clergy houses, churches. It importantly applies to church schools of certain categories. And there is a lot of work going on centrally, and we're setting up a steering group with bishops. Sophie Jelly is going to chair that for us in Sheffield. Other churches are declaring emergencies, stating plans and targets, and declaring the emergency means that we think this is really important and urgent action is needed. So it's not just words, it then needs to lead to action. And you can see there's a picture there of the Church of England General Synod where they voted for 2030 net zero. On the left is a picture with the energy footprint tool, which churches are doing now online every year to try and give some idea of what our carbon footprint is to give us a baseline. And there's a picture of solar panels, because increasingly that's the kind of thing that churches are going towards, although there's many challenges there. We also have an ecological or nature emergency. These numbers are extraordinary. Many of you will have seen David Attenborough's recent programmes, and we know that the number of wildlife sort of individuals and certain populations have absolutely plummeted by 68% since 1970. And one important point is that many people will say, well, it's just natural fluctuations, it's evolution, but what we now know, it's because of what people are doing. That is why we are losing so many species and so many wild animals and plants, invertebrates, insects. You'll see the last white rhino on the left, Sudan, the last male white rhino who died a few years ago. The reason he was the last male rhino in his population was because of hunting and poaching, directly as a result of what people do. Those porpoises in the middle, there's only 10 of them left. It's the smallest porpoise in the world. There's only 10 left because of overfishing and illegal fishing. But you'll see the butterfly on the right, which went extinct several years ago in 1979, but now is in 33 sites in the UK because people have worked hard to bring that species back. So it's important to say there's hope and we can do something about this. So why should Christians act? Why are we particularly called? And Ruth Valerio is a writer on this who spoke at our development day in the Diocese last year, and she sums this up in 4 simple lines. We do this for the sake of people living in poverty, and we're going to talk a bit more about climate justice in a minute. We do it for the earth and all living things who are precious to God. We do it for ourselves because our well-being is linked to that of the wider world. We can't survive without nature. Trees are our life support system. Without them, we would have no oxygen to breathe, for example. And ultimately, it's for the sake of God, our Creator, who gives us this mission. And the Archbishop of Canterbury and church leaders are now speaking out very strongly about this, and COVID is obviously an important aspect. We must always remember that, the stress and the devastation this has caused, especially to people who are disadvantaged. It's forced the world to look how we've been living, but it's shown that we can change. Repentance is important. There is hope amidst suffering. We are connected and we have need for one another. And I would go further, we're connected to the web of life throughout the world and all ecosystems. And this has been a revelation. We can't keep going. And as a Christian, our greatest commandment is love God and love our neighbour. And to abide by those commandments, we've got to step up to the challenge of climate change and the environmental crises. So I'm showing a picture here now of a school strike in the Solomon Islands. And this was when the children who are living in the Solomon Islands decided to put on their traditional dress and stand in the sea for their climate strike photo. And that's because it's affected everything. Climate change has affected the people, the sea, the land, the food, and whole villages have had to move because sea levels are rising. So this is direct impact on these communities. It's not just in other countries, in our country. Just one example here of local flooding in Fish Lake. A month's rain fell in 24 hours, and we've seen extreme weather conditions increase. And in this country, as in the rest of the world, often people who are already disadvantaged have their lives made much more difficult by the effects of climate chaos and extreme weather. So ultimately, this is a climate justice issue. We're called to love our neighbours, we love ourselves. And a quote from Micah, one of those beautiful verses of the Bible: act justly, love mercy, and walk humbly with our God. So I want to just talk now briefly about the voices of young people. I'm taking you through this fairly quickly because I do want to have time for discussion. Tear Fund and Youthscape interviewed 630 young British Christians aged 14 to 19, and they also had 23 people in focus groups. And it showed them, the results have been widely publicised on the media and by church leaders, and many of you will have seen them, but it's worth reading this report. It's readable and short, and it has a very impactful results that show Christian teenagers are concerned about discrimination, climate change and poverty. They link their concern about climate change with also discrimination such as racism and sexism and the treatment of sexual minorities. So this is there's intersectionality between all those issues for the people that they interviewed. I wanted to play one of their the videos from the launch. So I'm just going to bring that up and share the screen for that, and then we'll have some time to have a bit of a discussion. So I'm hoping that that will come up. Can somebody just unmute and tell me you can see this video? Can it be seen? Is it okay?
Yeah.
Publicly support causes and be fearless. This is more than a cry for attention or a shot in the dark at making a difference. This is truly an outworking of a young generation's faith. And I think this is best summed up in a comment from one of the research participants on the next slide. They said, "If I believe that climate activism is ultimately rooted in everything Jesus represents and calls us to do, then that's a very encouraging thing. It means there's something more powerful and transcendent behind it. And it's not just me with a little placard hoping the planet doesn't explode." While it's difficult to summarize over 600 responses, I hope that's given a clear insight into the leadership young Christians want from the church when it comes to climate change. And rather than continue to tell you their words myself, here is a video with their direct quotes of their message to church leaders today.
Dear leaders.
Dear leaders.
Dear leaders.
Dear leaders.
Dear leaders.
Dear leaders.
Dear leaders. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your commitment
with my generation.
with my generation.
The church makes such positive impacts in society.
We make a difference.
And that means we can make a difference to climate change. We are all part of God's perfect creation. So let's look after it.
Let's look after it.
Let's look after it.
This is God's world we're looking after.
We have a responsibility to look after the planet
That our God created so beautifully.
God looked at his creation and he called it good. Personally, I can't help but feel guilty that we've mistreated and exploited it to such an extent that soon the damages will be irreversible. Please, please acknowledge that this is an issue.
The church has such an important platform as an organisation within society to speak out. Listen to Jesus' call for us all to lose the bonds of injustice and be stewards of the earth.
Climate change is going to affect us all, but poor people will be affected the most.
Loving others and the poor is an important thing we are commanded to do.
As part of this, we must act to protect the environment, as this massively affects lots of lives.
We need to be doing so much more. It's time for the church to stand up as an example.
Talk about it more.
Pray about it.
Try and stay positive.
And trust God.
Make practical steps as a church and encourage the congregation to engage practically.
Pray for the planet.
And help do everything you can to stop climate change.
Be bold and don't shy away from preaching on important topics.
Challenge our parents to more care and less convenience.
Step up.
Step up.
I haven't heard anything from you.
We need to do something now.
We have the opportunity and a God who is all powerful behind us.
So why haven't we made a change yet?
Climate change isn't a problem for yesterday and isn't a problem for tomorrow. It is a problem for right now, and it needs to be addressed now.
Being passive isn't an option.
We need you to lead in this area.
Let's start a movement to save God's creation.
Please make changes and listen to us.
Please listen to us because we want to change and are passionate about changing and reversing climate change. We want to help and we have good ideas.
You need to give more opportunities to make a difference to climate change through the church.
When the world looks back on the church in 200 years' time, will they think that the church helped stop climate change or that it was part of the problem? Will they view the church as a positive part of society and as a catalyst of change, or negative and outdated?
I hope that churches join the political and environmental fight against climate change and speak passionately about the issue.
For the sake of the planet and for future generations, not just for Christians, but for everybody.
If we all try to help,
We could really make a difference.
Please, do something.
It's important.
and I'd like you to lead the way.
But if you don't,
If you don't,
If you don't,
If you don't,
Then we will.
we will.
we will.
we will.
We will.
So very powerful. How many of you had seen that report or were aware of it? A few, yes. I think it's been excellent. It is actually, they sound great. Loads of people have seen it, and I've said it's worth reading. It does give us a lot of useful information. They do say it's not necessarily representative of all Christian teenagers. Oh, Alice was part of the research. That's great. I've just seen that in the chat. So I'm just going to share a couple of the findings from there, and then we'll have a chat. So I'd like to hear your experiences of speaking with young people and children about this. So I'll just finish off this next bit. So that was the voices of young people. They wanted us to acknowledge climate change and create a culture where it's central and normal to respond to it. They want to support activism. take action, again, that word action, like ethical investment. They want to release young people who have their gifts to use them to act justly. It's an important area here I want to talk about a bit more, about communication and support, listening and giving emotional and prayer support, because climate anxiety is an extremely common issue. And the thinking of lament and grief is something that Christian groups are doing, and there's a very good new book by Hannah Malcolm called Words for a Dying World. Theologically, they want input on Sunday and other services, and they want us to take risks and be countercultural. And that's the list. They want us to listen, learn, speak, declare, act, and pray. And I just want to quickly put up here, it's worth looking at this online, a Newsround survey of 2,000 young people. You've got 80% climate change was important, 3/4 are worried, 1 in 5 had bad dreams, nearly 1 in 5 had sleeping and eating affected. They don't think their voices are being heard. They don't believe people in power, and that's us, and that's the church, are listening. And 2 in 5 don't trust adults to tackle it. And there's some advice available on this Newsround survey website about talking to an adult, taking actions, and that's what we're going to be talking about today, because even a small action can help anxiety because you feel you have a little bit more control with a positive change. Campaign groups and working with friends, and of course that brings in the church groups and church communities and schools and other groups we work with. If you have friends with you, you have support and you feel you have a voice. And again, encouraging practically schools, families and churches to be more eco-friendly and try not to compare yourself to others. That very good piece of advice for all of us. And there's more information on Newsround, including a video. So I'd just like to have a bit of a chat and listen to your thoughts about what people are saying to you about this. How did you respond? How did you feel? Do you think your church and school and faith community is doing enough? And what barriers are there to put this love into action? And I'll just unshare. So what have they said? How did you respond? How did you feel? Are you doing enough? And what are barriers? And then we'll go on to some ideas together. Right, so I think that what would be really helpful is if people just want to put up their hands and then unmute, I'll say their name and you unmute yourself. I'd just like to hear what people are saying to you about this issue. So if anybody would like to put their hand up, either virtually or on the, they'd like, yes, Amanda, if you'd like to unmute, and then Hayley.
I think just to say from our first Eco Church committee meeting on Monday that Kirsty and I were at, what was really interesting was, first of all, God answered our prayers. Like every single person had a kind of completely different skill set, some that I didn't even know they had, which was really, really exciting. But secondly, I don't think everyone was there because they really believe in climate change. And that could have left, especially my daughters, my 15-year-old daughter sitting here, or my 19-year-old just popped upstairs, feeling really, really upset. But what I've tried to say to them is, do you know what, let's just work with people where they are. So, you know, one of the people who isn't into, or two of the people who don't really believe in climate change, they've got amazing skill sets of, you know, being gardeners, being builders, having contacts, having authority in our church, and, you know, we will work with them, and that's just really, really exciting. So I think just work with people where they are and don't be discouraged, and think about who your audience is. You know, now with my brownies, we're doing stuff nearly every single week, and those kids are so excited, and they are then getting the voice out there. So, you know, I feel really emotional watching that video, and I know it doesn't, my children feel all those things it's just said, you know, feeling very emotional about things, but actually there's so much we can do, and just work with people where they are.
Thanks, Amanda. I think that's absolutely the way forward. Hayley, you'd like to say something as well?
Yeah. Just to say, this is something I'm absolutely passionate about. I have an MSc in environmental pollution chemistry, so it's one of my things, if you like. And one thing I find very frustrating is that a lot of people just seem to think they can carry on doing what they're doing, and you know, it's not going to affect anything. It really doesn't matter. So my kind of prayer, and what I'd like to encourage people to do, is think, when we come out of lockdown, it's not going to be, I hope, back to what we were, back with jet-setting holidays and stuff. That this pandemic, one of the good things that can come out is it's a pause button where we rethink, do we need to travel? as much as we do? You know, can we cut down car journeys? What can we do to reduce our pollution, our carbon footprint and everything? And it's also getting that message across to the youth, who I think realise they're going to have to live with it far more than the older ones, and making their voice heard.
Absolutely, Hayley. Thank you so much for that. And I think that what you said is really important. And the second half of my talk is going to be some practical advice. Okay, so what can we do? What's the path that we can take? Lots of resources and lots of ideas for that. And I want to hear your ideas as well. Thank you so much for that contribution. Are you in Sheffield, by the way, or are you somewhere else?
No, I'm in Teesside.
Okay, so there'll be, you know, I hope you're engaged with, you know, various churches and organisations with your expertise, because I'm always recruiting people for my working group.
Oh, right.
So, but if you were in Sheffield, I would have had you like that. But contact your team, because we need experts and people with knowledge who can speak with authority on this to work with church leaders. So thank you for that contribution. Do get in touch, and there's some things later on about that. So I'd like to hear what young people and children are saying to you. I know my children have spoken to me about this. They're in their 20s now, but the people you work with, what's the feeling on the ground? I'm just going to go across to the next screen. Anybody would like to say anything about, any hands up of what people have said to you, that the people you're working with, the children and young people you're working with? Amanda's put a thumbs up. Do you have conversations about this? Amanda wants to, is there somebody else? Do you want to just unmute yourself? And hello, great. So Amanda's got something to say something.
Yeah, I'm Alice. I was part of the research team last year. So I did an interview where I had to say how I thought about the church's sort of approach to climate change. I just think it's really important for people who are at a stage in their life when they're developing their faith. It's not necessarily already there. And I think just you think about suffering, you think, what is God doing about suffering? What is Christians doing about suffering? And it's so important that young people feel like the church is responding to climate change in order to really get that new generation of Christians, basically.
I couldn't agree with you more. It's a missional opportunity, and I'm speaking to the diocese about this because I feel that we have a strand called Renewed in our diocesan strand, which is about reaching out to younger people, renewing the church. Absolutely vital part of our mission is to deal with this issue and other social justice issues, because they're so high on the agenda. Mel has got her hand up, and what we'll do is, Mel, if there's nobody else who's got a burning thing to say, Mel, if you could speak, and then I'll go on and look at the rest of my presentation. Thank you.
Hi. Yeah, our young people actually called us out on our plastic use. We run a lunchtime group, well, pre-lockdown, where we go and eat with young people in a secondary school at lunchtime, and they called us out on you know, you've got your food wrapped in plastic, and we changed instantly. We were kind of like, yay, and it was encouraging to know that they are thinking about this as much as we are. So yeah, we need to listen to our young people, and yeah, we completely rejected all plastic in our food since then, and it's been a really good step forward.
Thank you, Mel. That's actually really inspiring to hear of change coming. And I'm going to move, go back to my presentation and just talk a little bit more about what we can go to next. So some ideas to start with. So I'm just going to move, I hope, to presentation view so I can see my notes. Right, so the first thoughts are, as I was saying, you know, I was trying to recruit somebody to my working group who has a special skill. And the important thing to say is that all the way through the churches, the Methodist Church has a Climate Justice for All youth-led campaign, the JPIT environment page, with Baptist Church of Scotland, Methodist and URC are working together. If you go to their website, they've got things going on. The Catholic Church, the Pope's encyclical Laudate Si is one of the best pieces of theological writing on creation care. And I would urge you to have a look at it if you haven't. And they've just launched a Guardians of Creation project, looking at how they can respond to this. And there's already a Live Simply program with CAFOD as well in the Catholic Church. Our Rocha Eco Church, I think, is really very important. I'm going to talk more about that in a minute. That's another sort of ecumenical initiative. And in Scotland, that's done with eco-congregations. And also, there is a diocesan environment officer such as myself. I'm a volunteer here in Sheffield. Other dioceses have volunteers or part-time paid staff who are their environment officers, and the list is online. So have a look there and contact that person. They'd love to hear from you, I can tell you that for sure. Our Rocha UK Eco Church has already been mentioned because we heard about an Eco Church group. This is increasingly becoming a very important part of the work I'm doing in Sheffield because it is a wonderful umbrella. It's an award scheme. Our Rocha UK run it. Their website, ecochurch.rocha.org.uk. And they care for creation as an integral part of following God faithfully and loving our neighbours. So as we were talking about the love for our neighbours being such an important mandate. You get a bronze, silver or gold award and you do a free online survey, and they very cleverly divided this up, and Ruth Valerio actually designed this. So worship and teaching is one, buildings is one, land is one, engaging with local community and global campaigns is one, and congregational lifestyles is the last. And one reason I'm so keen on this programme, and I'm encouraging churches to adopt it and register, which is actually free. You can give a donation, but you can actually go on and just do it free and see where you are. Is that I can't think of anything in the environmental agenda that is not under one of these headings. And so it is a beautiful umbrella when you don't know where to start. And for children and young people, I picked out a few examples because you answer your questions in our church. We celebrate special Sundays like Environment Sunday or Creation Tide, and you have to say, we do it once a year, we do it twice a year, we do it every month, and that will give you your score. So similarly, do we pray for environmental issues under the worship and teaching heading? Do we use caring for God's earth as a teaching theme in youth and children's work? Amazing things you can do for native wildlife for those of us lucky to have green spaces around our churches, and almost many churches do have, either in the vicarage garden or around a church hall or on other church land, put up bird boxes, bat boxes, bug hotels, hedgehog boxes. A lot of those can be made at very low cost or from things you find hanging around. Do you have a pond? Do you have native wildflowers? You get points for all of those in your assessment. Do a wildlife survey in your land, grow fruit and vegetables, community cleanups, reduce, reuse, recycle. I've written down WWF, World Wildlife Fund's annual Earth Hour on the 27th of March as something that's worth looking at, and I'll talk about their website later. But that is something that you can really, when you turn all the lights off for an hour, basically. It's an excellent programme. And that's in the scheme. Have you done toilet twinning, which is one of my favourite ever things, where you pay some money and your toilet is twinned with the toilet in another country to help with hygiene and help keep people safe, that they don't have to go out away from where they live to go to the loo. And obviously in time of COVID, that's vital. So that's worth looking at, and that's on the scheme. Do you have a communal Christmas and Easter card to save paper? And sometimes for a donation to a charity? Do you use fair trade or ethically sourced goods, etc.? So if you can see, a lot of those things are actually not that expensive. They're doable, and many churches already do them. So that means often people find that they're already quite a long way along this path when they do the survey. And I've just picked out a few there. So I'm going to talk a bit more about other actions. Linked in with this, Climate Sunday has an excellent website, and we're being encouraged to hold a service, ideally before the summer, to pray, learn and raise a voice about action, a concerted voice, because COP26, Council of Parties, is in Glasgow in November. It's a massive conference. Paris was a COP meeting. This means that governments come and make commitments, and we're hoping this year it's absolutely crucial. We've also got the G7, and we've also got a biodiversity summit as well. So it's a huge year for the environment, and we need to speak up. There's a new creation care scheme. It's a bit like Eco Church, but for households. I'm going to make all of these slides and links available on a PDF, as I said, so you'll be able to refer to them, so you don't need to take notes. I'm just trying to show you what's out there. On Earth Hour, you can download a free My Footprint app, which I highly recommend. It's very accessible. It's a really good website, and you calculate your footprint and you get ideas about what to do. That's, as I say, very available at wwf.org. And also there's a climate emergency toolkit. Your church can declare a climate emergency, as the young people were saying on that video, stand up and be counted, declare an emergency, and then you go on the map of the UK to say you've declared it, and churches and groups and dioceses have been doing that. People talk a lot about tips and pledges for lifestyle changes. There's so many websites out there and ideas, but the best way of doing this really is just to start with you as an individual person. What can you do as an individual? What can you do as a household? What can you do as a group or your church or community? It's better to start smaller and do just one thing. Leeds Diocese has got brilliant youth pledges. There's 10 of them if you search there, and they include things like I pledge to work out my carbon footprint or switch my devices off at the plug. But it allows people to say, I've completed it or I'm working on it. So it also, people don't want people to be too hard on themselves, because obviously that can make more stress. And I like the idea of Green Christian. We've got reduce, reuse, recycle, but there's lots of R's you can do, and you can make up more. Rejoice in creation by saying a thank you prayer before your meal, enjoying nature, refusing to believe everything the adverts say, wait 24 hours before buying, try to reduce social media usage if you can. And this is an interesting thing they said, R for resistance, resisting evil wherever we find it, and what should we be resisting today and how. So I think that would be quite a helpful thing for youth groups and people to look at. Another website, Count Us In, is trying to get 1 billion people to reduce their carbon pollution. You can go on and commit yourself and see how much carbon you save. And these are the 16 most effective steps. So I'm not expecting people to know, and as I said, this will all be available to you, but you can have a look, even talking to your friends, speaking up at work, repairing and reusing, insulate your home, eat more plants. All very, key areas where we can reduce our footprint. Just for schools, there isn't an eco church programme for schools, but Let's Go Zero and eco schools can be really helpful in guiding you through, and it's very easy to link in Christian teaching and learning from the Bible and about our faith linked up with these programmes. And Churches Count on Nature, I'm going to talk about later as well. This is where they're encouraging people to go in their churchyards around their churches and do nature surveys. This is going to be in June, and it then goes into the National Biodiversity Database. So it's a really excellent thing, which can also be COVID safe, hopefully, as well. And finally, in South Yorkshire, there is an organisation which is supporting students, teachers and schools on education and reducing carbon emissions. So as I said, this is just a whole list of possible resources that are out there, and they'll be available after the meeting today. I've done a little bit about outdoor worship. There's a lovely film at Muddy Church, and I know that there's a workshop on that this afternoon, which I'd urge you to go to, because Muddy Church is fantastic. And when you're outside, there's some top tips that a friend of mine, Lou Skerritt, who's doing study in the area of liturgy outside and creation. And she talks about leaning into the seasons. Look at your space, where are you going to be? It's not a case of just transferring your worship from inside to outside. You think about your space, your area, your country when you've got your liturgy. People should be move and create and play and make it fun and inclusive and welcoming. And a lot of people are increasingly, outdoor worship, especially now, is obviously a really good way of gathering people once it becomes COVID safe. She says, settle yourself and breathe, listen to the community. Remember, we're all part of creation. We're not standing outside it. We're absolutely part of it. And when you're not there, could you do something like they talk about leaving biodegradable ribbons for people to tie around things, or leave some log stools for other people to use. So outdoor worship is something that lots of people are interested in, and there's lots of resources which I've got later on in the presentation for reference. And it's something to really think about, and obviously it's fantastic for families. And yet, don't forget doing it at night as well, when it's dark. It doesn't always have to be light. So I'm moving on to discussion now, because I'd like your ideas as we're coming to the last sort of 15 minutes. Have you got experiences to share of things that have been helpful in your communities, questions and comments? And on the 12th of June, Sheffield is running an Arosh Eco Church conference online. And I'm really hoping to recruit some children and family and young people, workers, to help with a stream with Mike, which will be for younger people. And I'd really like your ideas. So I'm just going to stop my sharing. Thank you for your patience while I've talked about all of that. I hope there's some ideas there. As I said, don't worry about writing them all down, you can get them afterwards. What ideas and thoughts? We've heard about Eco Church already from Amanda. Has anybody else started initiatives with their groups? Any hands for anybody who want to say about what they've done? How about outdoor worship? Has anybody had a go at that? Anybody? Amanda says she's done outdoor worship. Thanks, Amanda. Do you want to tell us about that?
We just did it one. We only managed to do one campfire church in because it was cancelled, wasn't it? I think in December. Yeah, it was supposed to be the end of October, and then obviously everything changed, and so in December. And we just had a fire pit. We had we managed to get 17 families socially distanced in a massive circle with stewards, and people came in one entrance of the church grounds, went out the other, and it was just beautiful. It was lovely. We've just burnt waste wood that my dog had collected, and we had solar lights up, and it was just really good being outside in God's creation and singing Silent Night, seeing all the stars above. And what I noticed in particular as a children's worker is the families who haven't been able to cope with Zoom church or Zoom kids church loved it. You know, the families who've got special needs children, or children with, you know, who are quite ADHD or you know, maybe autism, they absolutely loved it, and have really enjoyed the muddy church trails that our outreach worker has been doing as well. So I'm really hoping, we were going to do one in January and so on, but I'm hoping we can start doing that again as soon as possible.
That's really inspiration. Campfire church, what a lovely phrase. I love the idea of everybody being outside singing Silent Night. How wonderful. Lisa, you've got something to say. Thank you.
Yeah, again, something we tried was we called it family church, and it was all set up for being outside. It was more like picnic blankets, socially distanced, and unfortunately by the time we were actually able to get it, we did have to move inside, but it's ready to go for when we're able to outside in the church garden with the families. And again, as you say, those children who struggle to sit still, those children who are much more physical, and you know, the outdoors really will benefit, you know, they will benefit enormously from that situation. So yeah, we obviously risk assessments and all that sort of thing had to be done, but yeah, it's good to go, and you know, we're looking forward to doing that when we're allowed back.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Lisa. That's brilliant. Anybody else? Emma, you've got something to say. Thank you.
Hiya, we just started a youth group in November, so we've only met face to face twice. We've been doing Zoom meetings ever since. What we've discovered is like a passion for fair trade, and climate change comes into that, because we're looking at the farmers and how they're dealing with climate change. Single-use plastic has been a massive shock to the young people that I work with. They can't believe how much waste we produce and how it gets into the seas and stuff. We're doing 40 days of fair trade over Lent, and that's been a lovely experience to do together, even though we're not together. So yeah, I just wanted to say that.
That's fantastic. And I think one of the things is that, well, I think it was what Amanda was saying, is that although there may be people who maybe don't agree with some part of it, some people have found like the school strikes difficult, you know, not sure about whether they should support that, or the activism, or the way that this has been expressed, you can always find something that people are enthusiastic about. You know, fair trade and the tradecraft stall, there's usually a doughty volunteer team who wheel out the tradecraft stall every once a month and are really committed to that, or people who are really interested in where food comes from, or especially gardeners. And I think that is a really good way of often getting in touch with people. Does somebody have anything else to say of things that they found helpful? Andy?
In Durham Diocese, we've got a youth council, and it's very hard actually to hear young people's voices. That's fantastic, the Youthscape and Tear Fund worked up. But what we did is we actually set up a live conversation between two of our youth council, like sort of 16, 17-year-olds. And actually Hannah Malcolm joined us as well, and one of our environmental champions. And we did it on Zoom, so like a 3/4 hour discussion about climate change. And then we streamed it live on Facebook. And that actually meant that people around the diocese could join in. It also gave the young people a voice. It's really easy to do. And just sort of a couple of young people talking to a couple of other people, but getting other people to join into.
I think that's fantastic. Andy, is there a link that you could share in the chat for us for that?
I could do, yeah.
Yeah, if that's not too difficult, if that's all right with you, because I think that is really, because unless voices are heard, we can't actually make any action. We can't hear what's important to people. And there's all these amazing ideas as well. Listening to young people was the first thing that was advised in the Tear Fund document. Anything else that anybody would like? Any other experiences or comments anybody would like to make, or questions for the group? Just looking around to see Julia.
Again, before COVID all kicked off, we were going to start a prayer garden, and especially with the little ones, but doing it as a church family, and anyone can access this at any point. So those who are keen gardeners who don't get to do that as a church outreach could really be part of that. Also having those areas for the wildlife, having areas that the kids can grow things, having prayer ideas, biodegradable ribbons, having maybe some prayer activities around that, attaching it to things, just different symbols, because people relate to symbols as well, as having that access outside is where we're going to go with that.
That sounds great, and aren't we all looking forward to the days when we can actually start to put into place all of the plans? We're all this pent up energy and plans that we haven't been able to do, and won't it be wonderful when, God willing, we'll be able to actually do some of these things? And of course, outside being a really great place to start, and there's so many resources which are, as I say, on the further slides, which I'll just flash through at the end, which will be available. I was going to ask, just the other thing that's sometimes a challenge is things like we do a lot of craft with our young people, and had people had much sequins are pretty terrible for the environment. So is glitter, unfortunately, and one of our favourite things. Anybody got any thoughts about that, about sourcing environmentally friendly craft materials? Who have we got? Lisa, I think,
yeah.
A comment?
They do edible glitter that you can use as a spray. Not an aerosol spray, but just a pump spray. I think you can get the most in Tesco's. They do a variety of different colours, and that works very good craft wise.
That's a really good idea. Any other tips from anybody else? Amanda, I think you've got your hand up.
We made a commitment, myself and the under fives worker, I think it's about a year and a half ago now, not to buy any more felt tip pens or to buy any more Pritt stick. It's taken a long time for them to run out because, of course, we haven't really been using them, but we're just going to we're going to go back to, coloured pencils and PVA glue, which, if anyone's got, I don't know if that's better, but it's better than the Pritt stick tubes that nobody ever puts the lid on and you have to throw them away, rather than the PVA glue that you can put a lid on and you can keep. And just wanted to say the other thing I've done over Lent is I've done an eco decision every day for Lent and put it on the Sunday School Children's Chat, on the Brownie Chat, and I've invited parents and children to get back to me with ideas. So I've done maybe a vegetarian meal and I'm not a vegetarian, or I've tried out something you can buy, or something you can help wildlife with, or like green electricity, watching I Am Greta. So, and as people are saying to me, oh, why don't you do this? I'll then make that one of my next decisions. So we now have a trug in our shower to catch the water so we can then flush the toilet with it, because that's what somebody told me to do. We now have a brick in our cistern because, again, mainly the Sunday school leaders, they're challenging me to do things. And quite a few of the brownie dads are giving me vegan and vegetarian recipes to try out as well. So it's been really interactive and really exciting.
That's wonderful. I think people sharing their thoughts as well is wonderful. We've got a couple of minutes left. I think Colin had something to say.
Yeah, just very briefly, I'll put it in the chat where there's a link, but a little bit different topic, more on the school engagement and the science and tech side. I'm involved with a project with the Woodcraft folk, which some of you may know, which is like, a young people's organization, which is an engineering sponsored thing about the engineering of mitigation and climate change control, if you like, hydrogen and electric cars and all the tech of that, which can be linked in with school curriculum, or just to hear about being an engineer and being somebody who works to solve the problem, rather than most of my engineering career, which was creating the problem, working in the oil and gas industry and so on. But I'll put the link up so people can get the website there. Yeah.
That's absolutely fantastic. Thank you.
That's not faith-based, of course. That's just a secular organisation, but it's a school thing. Yeah.
I think one of the things I've learned from, especially from researching for this talk, actually, is there's a huge amount of things out there that you can take from non-faith-based organisations and add in your own spin on it, or the angle. And there's so much out there that we can learn from all different organisations and groups. Has anybody else got any burning things they want to say before I put up my last couple of slides? Because we've got 5 minutes. So I think it's been lovely to have some interaction and discussion. I'll come back. I'm just going to show you one more slide and then a clip, if that's okay. So this is just with a discussion that we've had. I think I've had some ideas about the conference, which is really helpful. And I think, sorry, I'm just going to try and come to the next one. So we've got this online conference. I put my email address into the chat and it's available on the Diocese website in Sheffield. If anybody, either local or beyond, would like to get involved in the online ecumenical A Rocha Eco Conference, and Amanda, I think I'm looking at you here, even though I can't see you actually, and other people who've contributed today. We love volunteers to lead workshops. Mike will be helping coordinate it. I want to do a really big stream online, and it'll be at the end of Churches Count on Nature, where you can go to Caring for God's Acre or A Rocha and register. And for the week, we'll be having people hopefully doing their nature counts, feeding back on social media, and then coming and talking about it at the weekend with photography competition and prizes and quizzes and all sorts of really fun engagement. We've already got 4 MPs coming. We've got some brilliant speakers, and I'm really excited about it. So watch out for more information. It'll be on A Rocha's website because it's an official one. Now I've written Enid here because I want to show you something really quickly, because a lot of it is very sometimes difficult to look at, a lot of this work that we're considering, and I want to show you some inspiration. So I need to get rid of that, and I'm going to show you Enid. It's a very short clip.
Who've spoken and made many points in favour of this motion. But I want to do Prudence Daly the courtesy of responding to her call to oppose the motion. And I just want to say something about a few people not being able to make a difference, and ask if as Christians we would be here today if a handful of disciples who witnessed the resurrection had thought we can't make a difference.
That's all I wanted to show you. The points I wanted to make. Oh gosh, she's still going. Hang on, I'll stop her. Here she goes, the joys of Zoom. Right, so I just put that up because she was speaking to the Environment Motion at the Church of England Synod. It's a brilliant clip from 2019. And that's the other thing, that we are so blessed to have the church community, our faith, and all the gifts the Holy Spirit gives us for this work. And I'm really so encouraged so many people came to this workshop. Please get in touch with me if there's anything you'd like to do. I have a load more resources at the end of my presentation for theology, for practical steps, the eco-church resources, etc. I will get them into a PDF document so it's available as part of Delegate Pack. So I think our breakout rooms will be finishing any minute, and I'm so thankful to everybody for taking part and contributing and being patient with my IT issues. So enjoy the rest of the day, and thank you so much, everybody. Do you want to all unmute yourselves and say goodbye? That would be really nice.
Thank you.
Thanks, Cathy. Bye.
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 Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.